Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we're back with another edition of Necro-Mondays with our series Anarchy Road, our home-brewed War Wars campaign for Necromunda that we showcase every Monday during our science fiction gaming weeks. And on this episode, this is battle report number 69. It is a rescue mission that is fought between pit slaves as well as Orlock. My friend Dark Lord Mac is bringing the road crew of the pit slaves, and I'm bringing the Jury of House Orlock. So previously, earlier within our campaign, they've actually the very first battle report of our campaign. What ended up happening is I managed to capture one of Dark Lord Mac's vehicles for his pit slave gang. It's called the Shipbreaker. It was a walker, a small vehicle type with legs, and it had a laser cannon on it. And because of the battle, I actually managed to capture that vehicle. Well, in our campaign, you do have the option to rescue captured vehicles from the people who stole it from you. So in this case, Dark Lord Mac decided to do a rescue mission on this one. So we're still in turn number 1 of our campaign. He's going to try to steal that vehicle back from me as well. So that being said, we're going to play some background music real quick. As we do so, we'll show you pictures of the gangs as well as their stats. So that being said, let's get this battle report on a roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Alright, so let's talk about the scenario rules real quick. The scenario rule is called Rescue Mission. Pretty much you have sneak attack rules on this one. The objective is for the attacker to steal back one of their vehicles captured by the defenders. Once the attackers have rescued their vehicle, they need to escape within 1 inch of any table edge. So this is very much like the rescue mission from the rulebook for Necromunda, the original rulebook for the game, just because instead of rescuing fighters, in this case you're rescuing a vehicle in this scenario. For the crews, the attacker gets custom selection while the defender starts with 5 randomly chosen fighters. The rest of my gang is then used as reinforcements. Defender also has home turf advantage. So in this scenario, Dark Lord Mac is the attacker because he's trying to take back his vehicle, the Shipbreaker, and I'm the defender in this case. For deployment, the defender sets up the captured vehicle and sentries anywhere on the battlefield while the attacker deploys within 2 inches of any of the table edges. For reinforcements, in the round that the alarm is raised, D6 reinforcements arrive at the beginning of each turn, and for experience, each participant earns 1 point of experience for participating in the scenario. You get 1 point of experience for the driver who rescues the vehicle, as well as 1 experience point for the attacking leader if they manage to win. Reputation is 2 points of reputation for the attacker for each vehicle that is rescued, as well as -1 reputation for the defender if that happens, and if either gang bottles out, it's -1 reputation. Now you'll notice the experience are much lower on this scenario, and that's because unlike the Road War campaign scenarios that we have, the learning curve is not as steep because you're not fighting while driving and doing all this kind of crazy stuff on the open road, and that's the reason why the difference in experience points. So with the scenario rules over, let's go on and talk about the battle plan as well as deployment real quick. Alright, so here's over to show the entirety of the battlefield. As you can see, my friend Dark Lord Mac and I are playing on a 4x4 table. Dark Lord Mac is deployed in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm deployed in the center as well. Now this mission is actually going to be very dangerous for the pit slaves on this one. Unfortunately, the pit slave stats are not really good in terms of speed. They usually have about 4 inches average for their movement, so because of that, they're not going to be able to move very quickly on this battle report. Also at the same time, there's only 4 members of the pit slave gang on this one. My buddy Dark Lord Mac decided to sink most of his points in his vehicles in this one, having 2 vehicles to start off the campaign with. So because of that, he doesn't have very many fighters, so because that's going to be a huge problem for him at the same time. So because of that, he's only got the 4 guys. He starts taking bottle tests the moment he loses 1 dude, so you know, things aren't looking very good that way. At the same time, as you can see, I'm deployed in the center right next to that dirty well, which is right in the middle of the battlefield, and right next to it is the Shipbreaker, which is the vehicle that this gang is trying to go. Now for my battle plan, I really don't have one at this point, and the reason why is because for the most part, until the alarm is raised in this scenario, I actually don't have any real control over my sentries that are located on here. They just kind of randomly go places, and we have to roll off to see who gets control over them, so I don't really have a battle plan for the most part. I'm just going to see exactly where this fight takes me, and then once the alarm is raised, then it's just going to be pretty simple. I'm just going to try to overwhelm the pit slaves with my numbers, because I have more numbers than he does, and that could actually work out for me. So with the battle plan over, let's go on and talk about deployment real quick. Alright, so first of all, starting off with deployment for the road crew, which is Dark Lord Mac's Pixlay gang. As you can see, he only has 4 members of the gang being used in this battle report. On the top left-hand corner, that is Buzzkill. He's a pit slave. He's equipped with armor plates. He's got a buzzsaw arm as well as stub gun and dum-dum rounds. And he's also got the escape artist skill. Right next to him on the right, that is Spartacus. That is the pit slave chief, who's also the leader of this gang. He's got armor plates, paired shears, as well as a plasma gun. He's also got the commanding presence as well as the escape artist skill. Right next to him on the right-hand side, that is Val the Impaler. He is a pit slave. He's got armor plates, a rock drill arm, as well as stub gun and dum-dum rounds, as well as escape artist. And finally on the right hand side, that is Crixus. He's another pit slave. He's armed with armor plates. He's got shears, as well as a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, as well as the escape artist rule as well. And so the pit slaves, unfortunately, not very much long range weaponry besides their leader, just because of the way they're kitted out, but they all have a really dangerous close combat weapon with their cybernetic arms. So I do have my work cut out for me. These guys are built like tanks. They have high strength, high toughness, but don't move very quickly. So now we move on to the deployment for the jury. So right here in the center of the table, as you can see, I got 3 of my fighters. Right in the center in the back, that is the Shipbreaker. That is a small vehicle with a small engine hull. It's got a tool locker as well as hull-mounted last cannon as well. It's also got legs for the drive on that one. That's the vehicle that the pistol lasers are going to try to take. Up in the front, that is Darkside. He's a gunner. He's got mesh armor, a Rockatansi special, as well as a fighting knife. Right next to him is Tango, who's a wrecker. She's armed with flak armor, stub gun, dum-dum knife, a fighting knife, as well as a jump booster. She's also got the hot-headed and fast learner skills. Now, I am using a Juvie model from the Orlocks to represent my wrecker at this point, just because I finally did buy a box of wreckers, but I just hadn't had the time to put them together and paint them yet. So because I am kind of proxying for right now, but I am working on those new ones now because those Armmaster miniatures as well as wrecker miniatures are ice, and I can't wait to actually put them in my gang. So that's going to be really awesome. And also there on the right hand side, that is Johnny. He is my arms master. He's equipped with mesh armor. He's got an arc hammer, a stub gun with dum-dum rounds. He's got the nerves of steel as well as rule of iron special rules. And that pretty much makes my deployment here in the center. And on the top of the crow's nest, the last 2 members of my initial sentries. On the left-hand side, that is Riptor. He is my road captain, who's the leader of my gang. He's equipped with mesh armor. He's got a Rockatansi special, sawed-off shotgun, a double-bladed knife. He's also got a combo bolter with a grenade launcher attached to it, as well as commanding presence ability. And right next to him is Lemonhead, my road sergeant. He is armed with the mesh armor. He's got a combo bolter with a grenade launcher. He's also got a fighting knife, a stub gun with dum-dum rounds, as well as a Big Brother skill. And that pretty much makes up my deployment here in the center. And finally, off to the side of the table is the rest of my gang. On the left-hand side, that is Sorter. He's a gunner. He's armed with mesh armor as well as a Rockatansi special. Right next to him is Reptile. Reptile is a greenhorn who's armed with mesh armor, stub gun with dum-dum rounds as well as a fighting knife. Right next to him on the right-hand side, that's Reese. She is a wrecker who's got flak armor, stub gun with dum-dum rounds, fighting knife as well as a jump booster. She's got the hot-headed as well as fast learner traits. And then finally on the right-hand side there we have Tetsuo. Tetsuo is my gunner who's got mesh armor, auto pistol as well as a fighting knife as well. And like I said, my wreckers are being proxied right now by Orlock. Orlock GBs, just because I just haven't got the chance to put the miniatures together and paint them yet. So with the deployment over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 1, and both Dark Lord Mac and I roll off for initiative to see which of us has priority. So that takes us directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Orlocks, and like I said before, during the initial phases of this scenario, I actually have no control of my troops. What ends up happening is that we actually draw a fighter card randomly. That fighter is activated. Dark Lord Mac and I roll off a d6 to see which of us has control. If he actually has control, they make a basic movement in any direction he wants. If I have control, I can move them in their basic movement any direction I want as well. In this case, Dark Lord Mac got control of Lemonhead, so he made him come down the top of the tower, basically spent his basic movement facing the opposite direction where his gang is located at. So in the action phase, Dark Lord Mac pretty much activates his entire gang because they're so closely linked together. They all get the group activation with commanding presence. As you can see, Buzzkill as well as Spartacus, they do double moves to the left-hand side behind those Hesco barriers, working up their way at the left-hand side of the battlefield, while Crixus as well as Val the Impaler hook right and directly towards that shed. It looks like they're trying to go inside and try to infiltrate that way for the most part. And for the rest of the turn, as you can see in this photo, most of my gang members just kind of walked away. Dark Lord Mac managed to roll off for Johnny, as well as for Tango, as well as for Darkside. Those guys head over to the right-hand side, away from everybody else. Riptor, of course, stands his ground because I won his initiative, but when I rolled my 2d6 to see how far he could look, he didn't spot anybody. So, pretty much ends turn number 1 on a really uneventful note for the most part. So here's an overhead shot of the entirety of the battlefield at the end of turn number 1. As you can see, Dark Lord Mac and his pet slaves are infiltrating up the left-hand side, while my forces are being slowly drifting away to the right-hand side, away from the vehicle, while my leader Riptor is still posting his watch. So with turn number 1 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 2, and both Dark Lord Mac and I roll off for priority to see which of us will be going first. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 2, and the Pit Slaves manage to get the initiative on this one. As you can see in this photo, Dark Lord Mac decides to activate Crixus. He does a double movement to go directly inside of the shanty to take cover so that it's not spotted. And as you can see, this is the shacks that Iron Major built for our channel. And as you can see here, yes, the roofs come off, so that way you can see exactly what's going inside the building as well. And he's got little posters and little cool things inside there as well. Once again, Iron Major is a freaking mad scientist when it comes to making terrain, and just did a beautiful job on these shanties, which makes it really, really cool for this scenario. So just had a gush on that one because Iron Major is the man when it comes to building terrain. So with that, we go directly to the action phase. You can see in this photo, I managed to get Riptor from my guy when I randomly drew to see which of us will be, which of my fighters will be activated next. I did manage to get possession of him. Riptor does try to look at the rest of the gang, but unfortunately, I roll a 7, so they're not within his vision arc, so the rest of the gang is completely fine. So his action's used up. At the same time, Dark Lord Mac then activates Val the Impaler, who then goes exactly inside the shanty right behind Crixus, so that way they're taking cover and not being spotted. And for me, I managed to get Johnny back on the table again. I managed to get his stats under control. So because I just turned him 180, I have him moved directly back to the Shipbreaker because he's really deadly in close combat. I really don't want to lose that vehicle because that thing's got a last cannon on it, which makes it all kinds of awesome. Meanwhile, at the same time, Dark Lord Mac then activates Sparkicus, who does a group activation with Buzzkill, and both those guys and do a double movement up to the left-hand side to the shanty that's on the top left-hand corner of the battlefield, so that way they can slowly infiltrate through and get the jump on my fighters. And for the rest of the action phase, it's totally dedicated to my guys, and I managed to get control of all my fighters again. So because of that, I take Limit Head and make him climb the ladder right back on top of the crow's nest, so that way he can do overwatching with Riptor and shoot anybody that comes near them. And at the same time, Darkseid as well as Tango, they go back directly towards the base of the Shipbreaker because, you know, that's what I want them to do, so that way they can protect it. So with that being said, that pretty much ends the action phase. We skip the end phase because nothing happened, and that takes us directly to the end of turn number 2. So here's an overhead shot at the end of turn number 2. As you can see, the Pit Slaves are slowly infiltrating in through with that shanties on the left-hand side. Looks like they're using those buildings as cover so that way they can infiltrate closer and then try to flank me from the top, as well as come straight at me from the bottom there to the vehicle as well. It looks like what my buddy Dark Lord Mac is trying to do. So with the end of turn number 2 over with, we go to top directly to the top of turn number 3, and once again, Dark Lord Mac and I roll off for priority to see which of us will be going first. So top of turn number 3 goes to me, and unfortunately for me, once again, Limit Head does get activated, and I lose control of him, and Dark Lord Mac makes a move down the ladder, heading directly towards the opposite direction. Dark Lord Mac then activates Crixus next, so actually spends a double move to climb a ladder directly to the top of the shanty on the second floor, so that way he's got a good line of sight position from where he's located at through that doorway and directly at my defenders, protecting the Shipbreaker. Riptor is activated next, but unfortunately for me though, once again, I lose control of him, and Dark Lord Mac makes him take a basic end movement to climb down the ladder and join up with Lemon Head directly the opposite direction where the Pit Slaves are coming in from. And Dark Lord Mac also activates Val the Impaler. Val the Impaler does a basic movement to go, simple action to move up forward 4 inches out of the building, and this does take another simple action to go prone, so that way he's not spotted using that fence is covered. He's not been shot at, he's just laying down, going prone, so that way he doesn't get spotted. And once again, Darkseid does get activated again. This time, Dark Lord Mac also manages to control him as well, makes him go back his simple movement to the right-hand side, away from the rest of the Pit Slaves. And for Dark Lord Mac's final activation, he activates both Sparkicus as well as Buzzkill. Those guys do double movements directly inside the building. As you can see, we took the roof off the shanty off, so that way you can see exactly what's going on inside, and they're infiltrating through to go that little hole in the wall to kind of outflank me on the left-hand side. Once again, just really genius terrain work by Iron Mage on this one. It looks absolutely fantastic. And for the rest of the turn is dedicated to my guys. Once again, Limit Head gets drawn next on the deck because you can actually activate the same fighter multiple times, just depending on where you draw them out on the deck. So Limit Head does another basic action, hitting further away from the area of operations because that guy is deadly and Dark Lord Mac doesn't want him to be there. And finally, the same thing ends up happening for both Johnny as well as Tango. They both do simple actions directly to the right-hand side as well, moving away from the Pit Slaves. And that pretty much makes it the action phase on this one. So that takes directly to the end of turn number 3. As you can see, the Pit Slaves are still trying to infiltrate the left-hand side, while my guys are slowly drifting to the right, away from the vehicle, which I don't want. But at the same time, though, it's really towards Dark Lord Mac's advantage, because, you know, the moment this kicks off, you know, the things are getting real when I start opening fire on my guns. So it just kind of works well for Dark Lord Mac at this point. He's being uncharacteristically stealthy in this scenario. Usually Dark Lord Mac just kind of runs to your teeth and tries to kick him in, so it's actually kind of neat how that's happening. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 4, and once again, we roll off our priority to see which of us will be going first. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 4, and the Pit Slaves get the initiative on this one. Dark Lord Mac does a group activation with Sparkicus as well as Buzzkill. Both those guys do a double movement directly towards that barbed wire berm, using that as cover so that way they're not being spotted at, and also gives a good line of sight to shoot down directly on the left-hand flank of my gang. Once again, Johnny gets activated and I lose control of him once again, so Johnny goes further away to the right, slowly moving even further away from the rest of my gang, and not being able to protect the shipbreaker like I wanted to. And Dark Lord Mac then activates Val the Impaler, who does a simple action to get back on his feet again, another simple action move to the Dirty Well right behind that berm, so that way he's out of line of sight, and he's slowly making his way directly through the shipbreaker. And because of that, Crixus kind of stays in position, so the rest of the photo is dedicated to my gang. Once again, Darkseid is slowly going away, heading directly towards the Alexander's department store, moving further away from the shipbreaker. And the exact same thing happens to Riptor as he slowly walks away from the vehicle as well, because I lose control over him. And the exact same thing happens to Limited as he goes further away from the vehicle as well. So things are not looking very good right now for my defenders. They're not actually doing much more defending. It's more like they're just kind of walking around aimlessly. However, I do read control of Tango, so Tango turns 180 and goes right directly back to the shipbreaker. And as you can see there, he actually lands directly with Val the Impaler in my vision arc. I actually rolled an 11 on that one, so because of that, I was able to see him. However, because he's outside of 3 inches from me and he's behind cover, I had to roll a 6 in order to spot him. As you can see my D6 roll, I rolled a 4, so because of that, Tango doesn't spot him, so the Pit Slaves are perfectly fine at this point. So that takes directly to the end of turn number 4. As you can see, the Pit Slaves are slowly making their way towards the vehicle, as well as getting in good ambushing positions, while the rest of my gang is scattering to the winds to the right-hand side, moving further away from the vehicle, except for my record Tango. And that pretty much makes up this turn on this one. So with turn number 4 over with, we go directly to the top of turn 5, and once again, Dark Lord Mac and I roll off for priority to see which of us will be going first. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 5, and I get to go first this time, and once again, Darkseid is activated. He does another simple movement, going around the corner of the Alexander department store, getting further away from the vehicle, so that way he can't defend it easily. And this time, Crixus is activated next. He does a simple action to jump down from the top ledge of the building down to the ground, so he blanks that landing, no problem. He also sends another simple action to lay prone again, so that way he's not spotted by my gang, using the fences as cover. Meanwhile, Johnny's activated next. He goes even further away from the battlefield because I lost control of him. And same thing with Limited. As you can see in this photo, he's also moving away as well. And Val the Impaler gets to go next. He does a simple action to climb directly into the Dirty Will and another simple action to lay prone. So that way he's kind of like submerged in the water, so that way he can't be easily spotted. And Riptor basically pulls a Skyrim guard move and moves further away because he heard some noise going on in the distance and he wanted to check it out. Dark Lord Mac then activates Sparkicus as well as with Buzzkill. Both those guys do simple actions moving to the end of the barbed wire berm there, and also take simple actions to go prone so that way they're not easily spotted. So I got the sneaking suspicion that Dark Lord Mac is maneuvering so that way the next turn he can pop up and ambush me. And luckily for me, I do gain control of Tango again. Tango actually moves out closely to the bank there in order to try to take a look to see if he can spot Val the Impaler. Luckily for Val the Impaler, though, and luckily for Dark Lord Mac, though, I had to roll a 6 up in order to see him, and I rolled a 5. So because that, not much happens. So once again, the Pit Slaves are still stealthily moving around the battlefield. And that takes directly to the end of turn number 5. And as you can see in this photo, the gang of the Pit Slaves are slowly getting closer while my defenders are slowly moving away. So any moment now, this is going to kick off, and it's going to be all kinds of insane. So from there, we go directly to the top of turn 6, and once again, I get to activate first. Tango gets randomly drawn from the deck, and as you can see in this photo, Tango decides to go follow Riptor and move away from the shipbreaker, so leaves that vehicle wide open for being captured. And Dark Lord Mac decides to activate Sparkicus. He does a group activation with Sparkicus as well as Buzzkill. Sparkicus gets back on his feet again and opens fire with his plasma gun directly into Lemonhead. At the same time, as you can see there, Buzzkill decides to do a simple movement over the berm so that way he can make his way directly towards the vehicle. Unfortunately for me, Sparkicus does make his shot. He actually rolled 3 on the rapid fire dice. I actually got 3 shots off. 2 of them didn't fail to wound, and that's luckily because of me. There was cover that he rolled 1s on those one. However, the other shot did make it through, and it put a serious injury directly on Lemonhead. So because of that, Lemonhead goes crashing to the ground face first. He's currently bleeding out, hiding behind that hedgehog, and hoping that he doesn't get shot at again. And because the plasma gun is loud, my buddy Dark Lord Mac rolls a 2d6 and scores like an 11, I think is what it is. So because of that, the alarm is raised, so now the rest of my gang can be activated like normal, and I can start using them like I'm supposed to. So that part is super exciting. So the first thing I do is I activate Riptor. Riptor does a simple action move closer to Limited, so that way I can give him some support during the end phase and help him with the recovery roll by rolling 2 injury dice instead of 1. I then open fire my bolt gun directly into Buzzkill, but unfortunately for me though, I missed my shot, so because of that, Buzzkill is perfectly fine. Val the Impaler then is activated next. He does a simple action to get back on his feet again, and another simple action to jump out of the berm directly next to the shipbreaker. But unfortunately for him though, he used up both of his actions to do that, because to board a vehicle, unless you have a skill of some sort, it takes another simple action to do so. So because he's just outside the vehicle but is so close in order to getting that vehicle back in his possession again. However, I decided to throw that monkey wrench into that plan by activating Tango, and since Tango uses a jump thruster, she actually gets D3 additional movement to her, so I decided to declare a charge. She gets 2 D3 movement added to her for a double action. She closes distance super rapidly and charges directly into Val the Impaler and actually engages him in close combat, and because she's got 2 weapons, she gets 2 attacks, and she also has an additional attack because she charged. In the end, I was able to slip a wound through. My 2 first attacks did nothing. The first one I failed to hit, the second one failed to wound, but the third one though, with a shot from the dum-dum round directly into Val the Impaler, was the one that did the trick. Val the Impaler suffers a serious injury, so because he goes crashing to the ground face first, and he's currently bleeding out and lying at the mercy of Tango's feet, which is really bad because in the next turn, if I do a simple action, I can take him out with a coup de grace and put that guy directly out of action. So not to be outdone, Dark Lord Mac then activates Crixus. Crixus does a simple action to get back on his feet again, and another simple action open fire this stub gun with dum-dum rounds directly into Tango. Dark Lord Mac rolls a 6 to hit, so because that Tango is hit, however, when he rolls for his wound though, he rolls a 1, so because that Tango is perfectly fine. So right now, Tango is currently pinned right now, which is not so great because I do lose an action to spend a simple point action to get back on my feet again, but then again, I only need 1 simple action to put out Val the Impaler with a coup de grace, so hopefully I can make that happen. And with that being said, that pretty much ends up the action phase. So the action phase over, we go directly to the end phase. As you can see in this photo, unfortunately for my buddy Dark Lord Mac, because one guy is down, he has to take a bottle test and he fails his bottle test. So you see that that little warning icon goes off there, which means that during the next subsequent action phase, he has to roll cool tests for his fighters to see if they stay in there or they cut and run. Which shouldn't be too much of a problem for pit slaves, because most pit slaves have anywhere between 4 to 5 for their cool rating, so you know it is kind of in their favor. I mean, pit slaves don't really break all that often. And during the end phase, unfortunately, Val the Impaler is still seriously injured, so he's still bleeding out for the most part. I forgot to take a picture of it, I do apologize. However, Limited though, he managed to make a flesh wound, so because he rolls over and he loses a flesh wound, he is easier to wound, but Limited can still fight, he can still shoot, so he is still a considerable threat. So with the end phase over with, we go directly to my reinforcements coming in. So I rolled a 5 for my reinforcements, which was really awesome. However, Reptile, though, he rolled a 1 for his deployment, so because of that, Dark Lord Mac can put Reptile anywhere you want. He put him in the bottom right-hand corner of the battlefield away from all the action, so that part was kind of sad. However, Sorter, Tetsuo, as well as Reese, though, they show up exactly where they're supposed to be at. I put them directly at the top of the table, so that way they can start outflanking Sparkicus, as well as Buzzkill, and hopefully I can surround and then catch the pit slaves in a crossfire. And that pretty much ends the turn on that one. So here's an overhead shot at the end of turn number 6 for this battle report. As you can see, now my gang is slowly trying to swarm towards the shipbreaker and heading directly towards the pit slaves, causing all kinds of problem. And the pit slaves already are entire strays. They lost one of their guys is seriously injured. There's only 3 of them left, and they're slowly being outnumbered as well as outgunned. So with that, we go directly to turn number 7 for the Orlocks, and as you can see in this photo, I get to go first. So the first thing I do is activate Tango. Tango spends a simple action to get back on her feet again, and another simple action to take Val the Impaler out with a coup de grace, putting a grievous injury on him. So because of that, he goes into recovery, and at the same time earning a bonus point for Tango at the same time. So the Pit Slaves goes next, and during the action phase, Dark Lord Mac does activate Sparkus first, and because he failed his ball test, he has to roll the cool test, and as you can see in this 2d6 roll, he rolled Snake Eyes, so because of that, he automatically fails his cool test, which means that the leader is like escaping because he doesn't want to see exactly what's going to happen, and that pretty much ends the scenario for the most part. With half of his gang gone, Dark Lord Mac decides to call the game at this point, and because of that, it pretty much ends the scenario, with the Orlocks pulling off a victory on this one. And unfortunately for Dark Lord Mac, he was unable to rescue the shipbreaker, so because of that, that vehicle does still stay in my inventory, and I still have 2 vehicles in front of my gang, which is really, really awesome. So that being said, we're going to go directly to the post-game, because this game is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, now it's time for the post-game. So first of all, let's talk about the road crew real quick. So for injuries, Val the Impaler, he suffered a grievous injury, so he automatically goes in recovery. For advancements, none of the members of this gang advance at this time, so there are no advancements. And from their territories, from their wasteland territory, my buddy Dark Lord Mac got pretty lucky. They rolled up I think a 5 is what it is, which means that they hunted mutant animals down, and so because of that, they're also to stave the entire gang from starvation. So because of all of them are currently fed, he doesn't have to spend any money to feed his gang. At the same time, he also managed to scrounge up 20 credits as well. In the training post, he put 20 credits from the territories as well as 31 credits in his stash, gave him a grand total of 51 credits in total. With those 51 credits, he spent 25 of them to buy a kill switch for the wreckers. That way, if anybody wants to hijack this vehicle, they have to pass an intelligence check first to get around the kill switch. That way they can hijack the vehicle. It makes it more difficult for your vehicles to be hijacked for the most part. With the remaining 26 credit, he put directly into the stash because in the ash waste, you should always have some money saved aside because you'll never know what kind of problems you run into. For his reputation, he does suffer 1 point of reputation for bottling out in the scenario, so it drops his reputation down to 0. His new record right now is at 0 wins as well as 2 losses, and his new gang rating now is at 1,640 points. So with that, we go directly to the jury, who won the scenario. For injuries, none of my guys got injured, so I make a full recovery that way. For my advancements, Tango actually leveled up to level 2, and she got +1 to her weapon skill. So now she's weapon skill 4 and ballistic skill 4, which is all kinds of awesome for her as well. From the territories, for my wastelands, I rolled a 6 on that one, so because I get a caravan raid, and with all my fighters I sent on that caravan raid, I managed to scrounge up 190 credits as well as food to stave off starvation as well, which is all kinds of awesome. And for my grifter territory, I raised 70 credits from that one as well. So from the territories, for the training post, I earned 260 credits from the territories, as well as combining it with the 63 credits from my stash, give me a grand total of 323 credits in total. With those 323 credits, I purchased 2 kill switches, a set of boarding spikes, as well as spare tires for the tumbler. So now in order for someone to hijack my vehicle, they got to pass 2 intelligence checks to hijack my vehicle. I also got boarding spikes, which means that even if my opponents have a way to get onto my vehicle with either a boarding plank or with boarding pikes, they still have to take initiative tests. They don't automatically pass those because the boarding spikes makes it more difficult to drop on. And plus with my spare tires, if one of my tires get damaged, I have spare tires I can replace it with, so that way I don't have to worry about that so much. And for the shipbreaker, I purchased 2 sets of kill switches for that vehicle, so that way it's much more difficult to hijack. I also bought boarding spikes for that vehicle as well to make it much more difficult to board the vehicle, and I also bought a set of spare hydraulics for the legs, which means that if anything should happen to the legs, I got spare hydraulics to replace it, and it still can move around. After I got done buying all those parts, that gave me a grand total of 93 credits left over. With those 93 credits, I put them directly into the stash. My reputation currently right now is at 4 points of reputation, and I have a current record of 2 wins and 0 losses, and my gang rating now is at 2,760 points. So that's good to do for this episode, ladies and gentlemen, for Battle Report number 69 of Anarchy Road with our Road War campaign rules. So far, we are loving this campaign system, and the rules are really, really awesome as well. And as always, you can find those rules on my blogger site for you to download, and you can actually play your own games as well. And in fact, if you do end up playing with some of these Road War rules, let me know. Make a video battle report or take some pictures of it and put it on YouTube. Let me see it, because my gaming group and I would be so stoked to see that, because it'd be kind of neat to see something that we created being used in battle reports of your own. So there you guys have it. We'll catch you guys next one. Feel free to subscribe as well as comment and or like. Your input is always appreciated. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as Blogger for all the latest, greatest hobby news on this channel. We'll see you guys in the next one. Rev it up, and we'll see you guys on the next edition of Anarchy Road.